Well, hello there. Welcome once more to Kwankyewaa's Kitchen. And if this is your first time stopping by, I'd like to say a very warm akwaaba to you. Oh, yes, it is meat pie o'clock. And I have here for you this very delicious, buttery, flaky meat pie recipe. And guess what? I also have them in three different fillings. So, right here is the beef filling. Previously, you saw the sardine fillings, and I have these round ones which I filled with canned tuna. And each one of them is amazingly delicious, always a hit with my family and whoever I serve it to, and I know you are going to enjoy it just as much. So on your screens right now are the ingredients you will need, and as always, I'll also list everything for you in the description box. So let's start off by making our fillings. That is a sardine and tuna fillings. For the beef filling, I'm not going to go into the filling video with you because I have a meat pie recipe here previously, and in that I only use the beef. So it's going to be here for you, and I'm going to link that for you. So of course you want to wash your cans because you just don't know what these cans have been exposed to. So I've rinsed them off and I have opened the sardines, and now I'm going to go ahead and work on the tuna. So the tuna always, and not always, because this one is the kind that came in water. Even if you have it in oil, you might want to strain some of the oil, and if it's just chunks, of course you probably still need to pour some water off and flake everything. So I have them in bowls now, and I have here one large onion. If you looked in the description box, I did put if you look at the video that came previously where I had the ingredients, I put two, but I wanted to tell you I used only one of them. So I used one very large onion, so more like half for the sardine and half for the tuna. I diced them, and now I'm adding some salt to each one of them, and then I'll add some peppercorns as well. So these are freshly ground peppers that I'm going to put in, and then I'll go ahead and flake it. So this sardine filling, I know I've eaten meat pie with sardine, maybe fish pie, I should say, with sardine filling many a time, but it had been such a long time. And so one day I made meat pie, and then I had some excess crust or dough. So I decided to just make this quick sardine filling and put it in. And trust me, my husband and I both love that one more than the beef. And my beef pie, if you've had it, or even if you've tried the recipe, you know how good it is. But the sardine was so good, it hit the spot so good. So I decided to share the video with you and make this whole one, of course, with the tuna as well, because some of you might want the tuna as well. So anyway, I have here five sticks of butter. That will be about what, so 2.5 cups of butter, and I'm going to cut them all up. I'm trying to make them into cubes to help, in mixing easily in the flour. So these came straight from the fridge, so they are very cold, very solid, and that is how you want, because for your pie crust, you want to use, if possible, everything should be cold, even the flour if you can, and your butter should come straight from the fridge, so you have a nice, beautiful, flaky crust. So in my flour, I added some nutmeg and salt, and here now I'm adding in my butter, and then I'll go ahead and mix to form my dough. So I'll be using my handheld pastry blender to do this, and feel free to use your food processor or your stand mixer to mix your ingredients. And of course, you can also use your hand to achieve this. So With your hand, you're just going to run it through just like I'm doing. You don't want to keep your hands too long in here because the heat is not helpful to the dough. So I'll be rubbing it through my hands just like that, just so you in rubbing it, you get the butter to be able to mix up with the flour, and then you have a beautiful coarse texture. So just like this, you don't want to keep your hands in there too much. You just lift it and drop it, and every now and then you rub it through your palms to make sure everything, you know, mixes beautifully, and that when you make a ball with it, it stays together like I just did. Since it is achieved, you're going to go ahead and add in your wet ingredient, and normally I just use milk. So this is whole milk, and normally that's all I use in here without adding any water, and it's coming straight from the fridge, so it's very chilled. And feel free to also use evaporated milk. You could use 1 part evaporated milk to 2 parts water, or you could do just you know, half of each, you know, half and half water, and that will also be just as perfect. In the other video I shared with you, I added some grated onions, and that is typically how I do it, but it's just as delicious if you don't add the onions to this. So far as your filling is well seasoned, it will just be as delicious. So I'm trying to make 3 balls with this, and as you can see, it is not all the way wet. I still have some crumbs here that I'm trying to pick up with my dough, and that is how you want your pie crust to be. You don't want it to be all wet, you know, and easy to make into a ball. You want it to be as rough as possible, so that means you don't have too much water in it, and that is the way you assure the flakiness of your pie. So I have rolled one of my balls on my rolling board or chopping board using my rolling pin, and right now I'm just cutting out the shape. So I'm using this hard cookie cutter that I got after the Valentine's Day clearance, and I am going to make these heart-shaped pies. But before I do that, I am wrapping the rest of my dough, and I'll leave it in the fridge so that by the time I'm done making this first batch, you know, this first ball, it will be a little bit chilled. Normally I don't chill my butter, or I typically actually do it just the way I am doing it, because normally when I make meat pie, I'm making a big batch, and so I start off right away rolling some, and I leave the rest in the fridge. So once I'm done with 1 ball, I go bring 1 more, and that way I finish, you know, a little faster, because normally you don't have the time, you're rushing, you don't have the time to chill everything and just sit down and wait. But if you have enough time, chilling everything will work better. It's just easier to work with, but it doesn't really affect, for me, I don't think it really makes a difference in how your meat pie looks. So right here I put some of my filling, that is the sardine filling, on 1 heart, and then I lift another heart, and then make sure I set it right on top so all the sides are really, you know, approximated, and they are, you know, really fitting each side. So you know, you want the base of the heart to fit the base of the heart, and the tip also, the apex, whatever, to fit as well. And then once I was done, I used my fork to press on it, and then, you know, just to seal it. And then this is just beautiful, simple, and ready to be baked. So I have my pan lined with parchment paper, and that's what I'm placing my meat pies on. And so I finished the first ball, which wasn't put in the fridge, and this is one of those ones that I put in the fridge, and I know you can tell the difference, because with the chilling of everything, it is a little bit firmer and easier to roll and to cut, and that is the main difference, the main reason you would want to chill your dough if you have enough time. And so I'm making more hearts because that sardine one was so good, so we are really focusing on making more sardine and tuna pies, and we'll make it just a few of the beef ones. So for this one, I am just going to go ahead and use my finger, my index finger, to make these indentations instead of using the fork. and that is one way to seal it. And this is always my favorite, using my finger. I just like how it looks. I don't know why. I love it more than using a fork. Beautiful, just simple. And so I'm showing you one more how I did this. You know, everything is sitting right where it should. All the edges are facing each other beautifully. So once you press, you know, you have to be tucking that filling. You know, this meat pie is really filled, it's loaded, so sometimes you have to tuck in, the filling in a little bit, so you get some room, some empty pockets or empty spaces for you to be able to press down to seal. And simple. So now let's get ready to do the ones with the beef filling. And as you can see from this one, the longer the dough stays in the fridge, the firmer it gets. So this one, it's much firmer, it's more chilled and easier to roll, and easier also to cut through. And I'm using this pie cutter. Oh, and it's, you can also use it as a pie mold as well, but I normally just like to use it to cut my round shapes, and then I do the filling and press it down manually. So this beef filling, I use ground beef, and it is grass-fed beef, very delicious. I really like the flavor. It's more intense. It tastes almost like lamb, and I really love it. So I used this. I made it previously. I made a big batch of meat pie for a friend, and so this was sitting in my freezer for probably like what, 2 months in the freezer. And that's how long you can make your pie filling. You can make it ahead of time and just let it sit in your freezer, and just bring it out and let it thaw, and you're good to go to make your meat pie. Normally that's what I do. And so that's why I don't have it in the video for you, but like I said, there is a recipe here already, and I will link it for you so you can watch and make your delicious beef filling for your meat pie. So these, I'm really making them into what we really typically would call turnovers, because I'm making them in these big circles, and then I try to push the beef onto one half of the crust, just like I'm doing. So you turn it over like that and fold it over, and then I try to seal the edges. And of course, I like to use my index finger to do that. Feel free to use a fork or any way you think you can make it. And if you have a pie mold like I just used to cut it, you can also use that to seal your turnovers. So I'm using a smaller mold here now, and that I intend to use to make circular pies with the tuna filling. Just look at that filling, just beautiful. So simple, but so delicious. It has nothing, just what, salt, pepper, tuna, and onions. It's almost like a quick tuna sandwich, you know. But instead of being in between two slices of bread, I put it into into dough and just baked it. It was so delicious. You will enjoy this, really. So normally once I'm done pressing them down, I like to use my knife to just, you know, tack on the edges a little bit so they are a little bit smoother and not so rough. And that's pretty much it. Pies are made at this point, or turnovers, and at this point I have one egg here that is going to be the wash for your pie, and that is what is going to assure that beautiful golden crust. So I'm just using a pastry brush, and I'm spreading the egg wash on all of the turnovers and pies, whatever you want to call them, just rubbing them. I like to rub or brush every part of my pie. Most people just do the tops, you know, the cellars and everything, but I try to cover all the surface of my pie. I know, yeah, and that way it comes out golden, just shiny, beautiful, and anyone that sees it wants to just grab it and have a bite, you know. So once you're done with that, you want your pies to vent. So I use the fork just like you saw in the in the round and ones and the turnovers. I use a fork to make these holes in there so the pie vents and it's not going to pop open, you know, burst open or anything and look nasty. So right here you see it again. I'm just using a fork and making 2 sets of holes in here, just like that. You can be creative and make any style, write people's names or initials on there. And then I baked it in the preheated oven 350 degrees for 30 minutes. So 30 minutes later, here we are. Beautiful, gorgeous. Didn't I tell you it's gonna be golden? And really see how golden, how beautiful, how amazing they look. This is just perfection, perfection. This will be the life of any Ghanaian party, especially here in the States, you know. If you took this anywhere to a party, so when all this roll is over and you are, you know, turning up with your friends, this is the recipe that you will need. Just look at this. And even before that, make this at home, enjoy it. Normally I make this big batch, we freeze them, they freeze beautifully. You just bring them out, thaw. For best result, you just warm it in a preheated oven, you know, turn it off and let it sit there to warm up. That's what I'll do. Or it warms beautifully also in the microwave. So I make a big batch, freeze some of them, put some in Ziploc bags, and they just sit in there. Anytime, you know, we're going to work, you just pick one, you know. It's a good snack, especially if you're working in the daytime. Your breakfast, you just go with your cup of coffee and your 1 meat pie, and your day is pretty much made. I just love these hard ones. Just look at that. Perfect balance between flaky and moist. Just look at that. Perfectly flaky and buttery on the outside and just bursting with this goodness inside. This is just beyond delicious. You will love this. So good. So good. Just delicious. And now let's take a look at the beef ones. The real turnovers. So breaking into it, just look. Beautiful deliciousness loaded in here. This I know you really want to just come here and have a big bite of. I know. Just make it at home and you will enjoy it. And the tuna, just as beautiful, just as delicious. Thanks for watching. Thanks for doing this with me. Kindly give this video a thumbs up. And until I come your way next time with something delicious, be loving, be kind, be happy.